More than a month of lockdown and no real end in sight. Many of us are getting pretty antsy to have the whole deal over with, but we all have to pull together a little longer to flatten that curve and keep everyone healthy. And for those who have lost jobs or have struggling businesses, the challenges are even greater. When are those stimulus checks coming? Will there be a second wave of relief? And what's to become of those places nobody can go anymore? The restaurants, the little theaters. Entire neighborhoods feel like they're being mothballed thanks to social distancing. But we've got some folks with us with answers to our most pressing questions. Fox 11 News In Depth starts right now. Hello, everyone. I'm Hal Eisner. Thanks for joining us. COVID-19, the novel coronavirus. We're all struggling with the impact of this thing. Many of us have lost jobs. Some of us have lost income. Others are working from home, like yours truly. And our first guest, Congresswoman Linda Sanchez. And Congresswoman, thanks for joining us. We have a lot to talk about. We'll have you for a couple of segments here. But first of all, how you doing? How's the family? How are the dogs? Everybody healthy?
So far, so good. Everybody is healthy, which is a blessing. But it is a little bit challenging to be in close quarters with folks for long periods of time. So we are doing the best we can, and we are trying to use a little humor and just take each day as it comes.
Humor is a good thing. It certainly helps out in a tense situation. I want to ask you this. You're like a lot of parents in your district, which is a big chunk of what, East Los Angeles County area?
Yes.
You've got a child in your homeschooling. How's that going for you?
Yeah, well, distance learning has been challenging. I think probably and I used to be a teacher, so probably the toughest part of the distance learning is just getting on a schedule and getting in a routine. I think kids, because they don't have to get up and go to school, they sort of think it's summer vacation. And so really trying to institute that, no, this isn't vacation. We have work to get done, and trying to set up that routine has been a little bit tough, but we're doing the best we can. That's all you can do.
There's nothing that feels like a vacation about any of this for me, but I got to ask you, I mean, you're in Washington, you're governing from home when you're there. And so where are we right now? How are we doing? That first round of stimulus checks is starting to populate out there. And there's another piece of legislation out there as well. Why don't you fill us in?
Sure. So the last package of bills that we passed was the CARES Act, and that was actually the third in a series of bills. And the CARES Act was really aimed towards trying to stabilize families and small businesses that have been hit really hard by the economic aftershocks of this pandemic. So in the CARES Act, there was relief for individuals with increased unemployment benefits. There's a $600 per week pandemic federal benefit on top of the normal state unemployment benefit. And we also increased the length of time, an additional amount of time beyond the 26 weeks, which is the usual unemployment benefit. In addition, there were individual...
There's another relief bill out there, right, that you're working on now?
Yes, and in the CARES Act, also, I just want to mention some loans and grants for small businesses to keep them afloat. We are working on, recognizing that CARES wasn't perfect, we are working on the next piece of legislation, which will try to fill the holes of those places where CARES didn't quite get enough money or money to the right places. So with each successive package of legislation, we are trying to do more to try to fill the gaps of things that we didn't accomplish in the last set of bills. So we are working on this fourth phase.
Right. Now, it seems from afar that there's some conflict going on with this. What are some of these hangups?
Sure. So one of the things that we noticed in CARES, which had these grants and loans for small businesses, is we found that many truly small businesses with, less than 5 employees, mom and pop shops that don't have a lending history with a bank, many banks weren't reaching out or taking applications from businesses that they didn't already have a lending relationship with. Well, if you're truly a really small business and you haven't taken out any bank loans, then it's really hard for you to apply for the relief that was in the CARES Act. So we are trying in the next installment to focus a particular amount of money towards community banks so that they can help those truly small mom and pop businesses access these grants and loans that the federal government is providing to try to help keep them afloat, because they are truly the hardest hit.
Will we also see money in there for things like PPEs and child care assistance and unemployment? I mean, what else is in there?
Definitely. Well, we are working on childcare for our healthcare professionals and first responders, because many of them have childcare issues. They're also experiencing immense pressure in their job with respect to the number of sick patients that they are seeing and the number of deaths they're seeing, which we're trying to provide some mental health relief for those healthcare professionals that are working. They're really doing a tremendous job under very difficult circumstances. That is also a part of the next package of bills. Also increasing by 15% SNAP, which provides for food for families that are in need. We want to provide more benefits so that people are not food insecure and can actually feed their families. So all of that is in the next package of bills, and many other things that we're discussing as well.
I just want to ask you, what is it like dealing with this? I mean, this is really unprecedented. And so for government to deal with something that's unprecedented, how is this with you and your colleagues?
Well, we meet almost daily on conference calls. So we are on conference calls a lot with our committees of jurisdiction and with the larger, members of our caucus. It's really difficult because we are trying to get relief out there quickly. But, we are trying to also, provide the PPE, the personal protective equipment that hospitals need. We're trying to help cities that have been hard hit by this. We're trying to help small businesses and individuals, and we're all doing it pretty much remotely. So it's hard, and we are trying to do the best we can. Many of these programs are unprecedented, so there wasn't the infrastructure to deal with these programs. We're having to build it as we go, which is why some of the rollouts haven't been as smooth as we would like, but each day that passes, we are trying to get better at getting the relief to people who are hardest hit and people who need it the most. We're doing everything that we can.
The good news here is that we're going to have you for another segment. So let me just say this. We'll continue with Congresswoman Sanchez in just a moment, and particularly, we're going to talk about the racial disparity that's being uncovered about just who is facing the worst of this disease. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Fox 11 News in Depth. I'm Hal Eisner. Joining us right now from her home is Linda Sanchez, Congresswoman from the East Los Angeles County area. And we're continuing our conversation about COVID-19, the impacts of that. One of the unforeseen impacts of this has been the racial disparity that's shown its kind of face in dealing with who gets sick, who dies. Talk about that for a moment. There have been some really serious studies on this just this month.
Yeah, well, it's not surprising that there is a huge disparity in the number of people who are contracting coronavirus and dying from it, because we know that these health disparities exist among different communities in the United States, and low-income communities, immigrant communities, minority communities tend to have less access to health care. They tend to have more underlying health problems, which puts them more at risk for contracting coronavirus. And we really need to start grappling with these health disparities to turn this around. We can no longer just accept that that's the way life is. We have to begin addressing those. And so with coronavirus, we are starting to see some really disturbing patterns emerging, and we have to do a better job at getting to the root causes of those health disparities, so that certain communities, just by virtue of the fact that they are, unique communities, have worse health outcomes. We really need to get the data together so that we can put the resources that are necessary into those communities so that those disparities don't continue.
I know that like any other congressperson, you get phone calls from your constituents, and I'm sure you're getting your fair share right now. And I'm kind of curious, what are you hearing from them?
Yeah, so I've been doing a series of town halls, and I've done them with my healthcare providers. I've done them with small business owners. I've done them with the education community and law enforcement. And really, it's an opportunity for me to listen to what are the biggest challenges that they're facing, and what is it that we need to do in successive packages of legislation to try to address those issues. So for small business owners, they're just concerned about the lack of revenue, about how they're going to make payroll and pay their rent, and what are they going to do. I hear from individuals who are not working, that are, having to get information on where to access food banks because they've never had to do that before. I'm getting questions from law enforcement about, how can they get more protective equipment for themselves. I'm hearing questions from healthcare providers about, what do they do to get the necessary ventilators and protective equipment that they need. So I hear it, from everybody in terms of what they're missing and how can the federal government help plug those holes so that they have what they need to do their jobs. I hear from parents.
You're close to the heartbeat of all of this in Washington, D.C. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I have to ask you.
No, yeah.
What is your feeling about it? What is your concern? What is your angst about how long this could go?
Yeah. So, when it comes to the economy and opening it up, I know there's been a lot of discussion about that, but we really have to listen to the healthcare professionals. And the healthcare professionals are saying, it doesn't do any good to reopen the economy if you're not prepared, and you'll see coronavirus cases skyrocket again. We really need widespread testing, which we don't have. The federal government has been woefully inadequate at providing the testing that we need. We really have to be careful that we don't do permanent damage to our workforce by trying to get the economy open too soon. It's better to have an economy that is crawling along than to have one that is completely shut down because this pandemic runs rampant and, makes workers sick and, allows people to die. We cannot do that. We have to listen to the health professionals. And, my sense is that the way this pandemic started is the way that we'll get back out of it in fits and starts. And really, healthcare professionals are best positioned to tell us when it is safe to reopen the economy, not politicians.
We heard from Governor Newsom this week, and Governor Newsom told us that when we get back to life, it may not seem normal at all, that restaurants might just have half the tables it used to, that waiters might serve you with masks and rubber gloves, and schools might have tiered days, and perhaps PE and other things are going to be structured in a way that kids aren't interfacing so much with each other. What do you see? What do you see as far as policy, public policy, that has to do with social distancing after this is all over? And we only have about 30 seconds.
Sure. Well, we can't say after this is all over because until there is a cure or a vaccine, we will have to practice social distancing. So again, I think we need to listen to the healthcare providers, the contagious disease specialists about how we need to restructure our businesses and our schools until such a time as it is safe to go back to the way things used to be. There will be a new normal, and we're all just going to have to adapt to it.
Well, thank you for joining us in this old, not so normal right now, and really appreciate your time. I know you're doing an awful lot of work there, and best of luck to you. Thanks so much, Congresswoman.
Thank you so much.
And we'll be right back on the other side of this break, and we'll talk about the impact of the coronavirus on theaters. Oh, yeah, big impact. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Fox 11 News in Depth. I'm Hal Eisner, and right now we want to talk a little bit about the arts. Specifically, we want to talk about theater. Even more specifically, we want to talk about the North Hollywood Theater District. And joining us right now, Ronnie Marmo, who's the owner, or rather the artistic director of Theater 68. He's an actor. He's starring in his own play called I'm Not a Comedian, I'm Lenny Bruce. And Ronnie's friend, Joe Mantegna, an actor you may very well recognize from many TV shows like Criminal Minds. He's also the voice behind the very famous Simpsons character, Fat Tony. Mantegna recently tweeted out a warning from Fat Tony. Take a look.
Hi, Joe Mantegna here. This is a shout out to all my fellow Illinoisans that during these trying times to please be safe, stay at home, wash your hands, do all the things the medical experts are telling you to do. And if you don't, I might just send Fat Tony out there to straighten you out. Okay, God bless.
Very good. Joe and Ronnie, thanks for joining us on this program. I just want to digress for one quick second. I got to keep this short. But Joe, you and I met quite some time ago when the Chicago Cubs were in the World Series. I remember you watching the end of that game in our news van. It was delayed inside your restaurant, which was in Burbank. And you ran in and told everybody they won. And the people inside didn't even know yet because of that delay. Yeah. That was really a special moment.
That's right. Thank you. I'll always be grateful to Fox News for allowing me to be the first human in LA to see that the Cubs won.
Yeah, right. I want to talk about the problems in the NoHo Theater District because this is really a big deal. And Ronnie, let me have you explain what's happening.
Well, the theaters are in big trouble. I mean, because here's the thing, there's 22 theaters in about 1 mile radius. It's the second largest in the country after New York City in terms of amount of theaters. And I'd say 18 of them are in real trouble about going out of business. Rent's due. We had to close up, obviously. And we're scared because the NoHo Arts District makes up the Arts District. That's the theaters. And that's where we're at. We're in trouble, and many of them may not make it through.
And it's not even just the theaters. The restaurants depend on the theaters. And so for anybody who would be in the area taking takeout right now from a restaurant, that's not happening either, right?
Well, that's true. And if you think about it, a couple of years back, NoHo Arts wasn't the district. Before the district, it wasn't, the greatest place to be. And suddenly the theaters, they hung in there and more theaters showed up and it became the arts district. And then the restaurants and bars followed. And so we all kind of need each other, and it's a ghost town over there right now. And it's scary. And, no one gets into theater because they want to get rich. You have to kind of have your head examined to do this. It's a bit of a sickness. And the only way we survive is month to month as it is. So it's a tough time and a scary time.
I want to ask you about something else. It's not just North Hollywood, it's worldwide. You two are in the middle of producing your play, I'm Not a Comedian, I'm Lenny Bruce, in Chicago. Now, what did the quarantine do to that?
Well, March 15th, I closed the show abruptly. I did do 4 performances that weekend, but I was literally on stage on March 15th, the matinee, and I got really nervous. I was maybe 20 people showed up and we have 200 seats. I let them sit where they want. They had masks on. It was a bizarre experience. And as soon as the show was over, I grabbed my bag and went to the airport and got on a plane. I wasn't even supposed to fly out that day. I was like, I'm nervous. I got to get back to Burbank and my family. So it was scary, and we closed up. We fully intend on going back, but as of right now, we're with everyone else. Joe, I don't know if you want to speak on that.
Yeah, I want to ask Joe, what's your reaction to all of this?
Well, it's obviously it's unique in the sense that usually when something like this happens, you're able to talk about it in relation to where it is happening. But the fact that it's worldwide and that we all have the same story, that makes it very unique, and it'll be unique in the annals of history. So when they say we're all in this together, I mean, they literally mean we're all in this together in terms of every human being on this planet. So, I mean, knowing that, there's something comforting about that, I feel, in that hopefully when this is all over, we're all going to, learn a lesson from it in some ways, and hopefully we'll be able to move forward. And of course, things are going to change. And of course, the theater business in particular, if you think about it, the idea of people then going back into a public place, and in some instances, if you're talking especially Broadway or big venues, thousands of people getting together that don't know each other, that's gonna happen gradually. So in a way, the small theaters are gonna be probably a good way to trickle back into some degree of normalcy. In other words, it will be the small theaters.
How worried are you right now about the idea that when we get back into some normalcy, people aren't going to want to be close to each other? Somebody's not going to want to be in that theater seat next to you, that kind of thing. So what's your feeling about?
Sneezes, you. Oh,
yeah.
Sorry, Hal.
There may be changes.
No, it's okay. I mean, that's the point.
You may have to do like those the things you hope for when you get on an airplane, that you hope that there's empty seats on either side of you, type of thing. There may be some spatial seating.
Everybody's going to run to the exit. It's scary. It's a scary thought and idea, and it'll be surreal for the performers as well. But I think we need it. We need art. I mean, that's why we created this GoFundMe page to try to save all 22 theaters in North Hollywood, because 18 of them are in serious trouble. So.
Tell me real quickly, because we only have about a half a minute left. Just tell me about the GoFundMe page. In fact, tell everybody about the GoFundMe page.
Okay, so the NoHo Arts District, Nancy Bianconi, the head of the NoHo Arts District, created this GoFundMe page, and the idea is to save all the theaters in North Hollywood, which then in turn would save the restaurants, the bars. It's just we need each other, and so you could donate. It's $1, $5, $100, whatever you want to give. Even if you can't donate, please go to nohoartsdistrict.com and share it for us. If you don't have
am
any money,
am I misstating if I say it's a dire situation? 15 seconds.
It's completely dire. There's a good chance 18 out of the 22 theaters are going to go away, and the NoHo Arts District will be officially no longer the NoHo Arts District. Very
serious situation there, Joe, Ronnie. Thanks both of you for joining us, filling everybody in on that. And we'll be back right after the break with more Fox 11 News in Depth. Don't go away. Welcome back to Fox 11 News in Depth. We've seen so many sad and frustrating things over the recent weeks. We thought it'd be nice to end with some positivity. So we want to tell you about a local teen who's making an impact by making facial masks. And, well, the big celebrity in here, you would recognize if he didn't have one on. Take a look.
So many different patterns, so many different types of people it can go to. Some kids ones.
It's so wonderful. I've known the Littman family almost 20 years. And Joey Littman, their teenage daughter, such a sweetheart.
I love volunteering and doing things to give back. And also, once I heard that school wasn't going back, I needed to find something to keep me busy other than schoolwork.
And she knows about my nonprofit foundation called Maximum Hope Foundation. And we assist families that have children with life-limiting illnesses, and we help them with daily necessities.
He wanted 50 masks for his foundation, and I was like, let's do it.
Within 48 hours, we had 50 beautiful masks.
People aren't too happy right now. They're very down. But I'm trying to make everyone happy, maybe give them a fun colored mask to maybe brighten their day.
Brad, you're as homebound as the rest of us. What is your feeling about this whole public health crisis?
I'm hoping there won't be another crisis like this, but if in fact it happens, I just hope we're better prepared and we can protect ourselves and our medical community. We will get through this, but we have to learn from this, and I'm hoping that's is exactly what happens. Oh, I touched my face.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Brad Garrett, what a funny guy. What a serious message. We'll have to get him on my podcast. What the hell? It's available wherever you get your podcast. We have about 100 episodes. Hope you'll listen to them. Thanks for joining us. We'll get through this, everybody. Hang in there. See you next time.